let's get into it right now. In this video, we will discuss the upcoming bout this evening. I keep it nice and short. Teofimo Lopez, Pedro Campa. What does this mean for Teofimo? Is he really back in real life? He's talked a lot of reckless stuff nonsensically. What has Teofimo said this week? I haven't lost. I'm undefeated. Tank, Devin, even guys like Ryan Garcia want something that I have. All of that stuff is kind of weird and questionable, but I'll leave that to some of the other channels that are out there. Primarily what I want to discuss is, what do I think is going to happen in this fight? What happens to Teofimo at 140 pounds? And who is Pedro Campa? So let's start with Pedro Campa. Pedro Campa, dope fighter, he's really kind of low on the resume of individuals who don't really check for him. And admittedly, I don't know a lot about him, but what I do know about Pedro Campa, I studied some tape of him. And I say this respectfully. He's kind of like a poor man's Juan Manuel Marquez. What I mean by that, Mexican style, but highly technical, right? Volume punches, nice tight elbows, shoulder delivery, doesn't waste a lot of time and attention and space, and tries to be effective. The primary problem that Pedro Campa is going to have, Pedro Campa is going to have against a guy like Teofimo Lopez is the power is way low. He's not a power guy. He's not a, hold on one second. My mic's going crazy. He's not a power guy. That's going to spell trouble. Now, what we have to examine in this fight coming up is Teofimo Lopez is at 140 pounds. This is the weight limit of this fight. It's a 10 round bout, which for Teofimo, in my opinion, for where he's come, where he's been, who he's fought, it's a little bit of a step back. We know he has a Lomachenko on his record with a victory. Now he's in a 10 rounder for an alphabet belt and a vacant. I believe it's a WBO belt, which makes sense. That's the ESPN style belt. But if you look at Pedro Campa, low on the power ranking, he's ranked within the sanctioning bodies. He's an action style guy. He looked to be a little bigger, size. He had his little muscle out for Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez weighed in at 138.4 pounds. Pedro Campa weighed in at 139.4, I believe. So they both came in under the 140-pound limit. Now, if you listen to Timothy Bradley, Max Kellerman, they'll tell you, oh my God, Teofimo Lopez, he came in at 138.4. That is a ready weight for the division, blah, 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 whatever. If Teofimo Lopez and his camp says that he's too big for 135 pounds, I don't have any reason not to believe him. But they came in just 3 pounds over that limit while campaigning at 140 pounds. He said, I fought at 135 my entire career. I'm a 40-pounder now, yada, yada, yada. We'll see how it looks. So the question that I really want to ask, hold on real quick. The question that I really want to ask, if you are a fan of Teofimo Lopez, is what does a victory tonight against Pedro Campa mean? What does a victory really mean for Pedro Campa tonight? Or excuse me, Teofimo Lopez against Pedro Campa. First fight at 140 pounds. Do we care about the opponent or the outcome? Or is the expectation that Teofimo is going to go out there and blow this dude away? We're going to see a highlight, and then we'll continue to put Teofimo on the hype train of one of the best at 135 and 140 pounds. What do we care about for this particular bout? That's the question that I would ask. because while I feel like it might be slightly inappropriate, and shout out to Pedro Campa, we might need to look ahead a little bit, because one of the things that's fascinating about 135, or really if you want to go 126, 130, 135, 140, I'll stop right there, is guys are limited in experience, but calling for title shots. Teofimo, in my opinion, is a little bit extraordinary from the perspective of he has a lot to say, and his pops has a lot to say about who and what he is and what he's accomplished with a limited resume, limited experience, and a bad loss against George Kambosos. Because quiet as it's kept, Kambosos kind of lumped up Teofimo Lopez, embarrassed him in his hometown, took the belts, went back to Australia, and then got shut up by Devin Haney, a fighter that Teofimo Lopez had no issue making fun of, kind of clowning, email champion, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Devin Haney did what he was supposed to do, called out everybody, went overseas to Australia. I did a fight the day the Devin Haney Kambosos fight was announced. I did a video. I've said this before, and I stated Devin Haney should get used to and be comfortable being in Australia, because he will beat Kambosos. That will happen. Kambosos will call for rematch, and then Devin Haney will beat him soundly again. Shout out to Devin Haney. You think about this deal, ESPN deal. He leaves the DAZN side. 3-fight deal. He takes less money, but he already made his money on the front end with DAZN, so he's not worried about that. But what he is worried about is putting himself in a position to fight the best opposition out there and then showing improving. One of my favorite things about Devin Haney is that the fact that he had an interview, and I don't remember who it was with, so if you guys know who the interview was with, let me know who it was. And he stated simply, I'm not trying to protect anything. So, fighters are trying to protect their whatever the case may be. So Devin Haney says, if I go out there against a fighter and lose and get my ass whooped, that's what's up. That guy was better than me that evening. But I will put myself in a position of harm's way, taking a loss, getting knocked out, getting stopped, fighting the best possible opposition, in order to cement my legacy and prove I'm one of the best fighters on the planet Earth today, from 35 to 40, or from 30 to 40, or from 30 to 47. What more do you want in a fighter that you root for today than that statement that a guy like a Devin Haney has made? And as I say all that, I go back over to the side of a guy like a Teofimo Lopez, who will go out of his way to say, oh, Devin Haney's weak, not fight him, lose to Kambosos, not rematch him, then wind up in a fight in a new division at 140 pounds. That's a 10-rounder against a guy that most people don't know. And it's not a knock against Campa. That's not what this is about. But it's about the hype that surrounds a guy like Teofimo Lopez and his pops and the shit that they've talked. Now that I've laid out all that kind of political nonsense, let's get into the skills and the abilities. Teofimo Lopez is a better fighter than Pedro Campa. Can he apply himself in that way? I'm not sure. The best example that I have that I could provide right now is, if you think about how Teofimo fought against Vasyl Lomachenko, a fight that I think that he won, close fight. The 12th round sealed it for Teofimo. First 5, 6, 7 rounds, these two things really led to victory for Teofimo Lopez: his jab and his ability to dominate the lead foot positioning. Vasyl Lomachenko was not prepared for him to have studied so much, be athletic, and operate with power. Now, here's what I would say about Teofimo Lopez, but Vasyl Lomachenko. He struggles at anything above 130 pounds. At 135, he's been hurt by everybody. Dropped by Linares, hurt by Luke Campbell, beat by Teofimo Lopez, but he's beat some guys at that weight. But by and large, 35 is the weight, in my opinion, where Lomachenko kind of starts to meet his ceiling. In the fight with Teofimo Lopez, that being Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, his pops, his camp, his team did a fantastic job just deciding We are going to box, utilize basics and our physical advantages, speed, reach, overall physical strength, and then figure out a way to get a victory against against Vasily Lomachenko. You look at 7, 8, 9, 10 in that particular fight, Lomachenko just made a decision. And this is where it gets kind of tricky for a fighter like Teofimo Lopez. Lomachenko said, okay, I'm just going to play offense. He started putting a lot of pressure on him, backhand, right hand, really catching Teofimo a lot and putting pressure on him, damaging him upstairs, downstairs, where he shut down Teofimo's offense. Vasily Lomachenko became Vasily Lomachenko. This is where the 12th round becomes so crucial in that particular bout, where Teofimo's dad, you go back, watch the fight, don't watch highlights, watch the whole fight. So if it's like 36 minutes or whatever, Top Rank, blah, 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 ESPN, watch the entire fight, or from 5 rounds to the 12th, so 7 rounds of the Lomachenko-Teofimo Lopez fight. You go to the 12th round, Teofimo's dad tells him, hey, you're up, you're winning, it's all good, you can relax. You see Teofimo Lopez come back in the 12th round against Vasily Lomachenko and sell out. If he was going to get knocked out, that was going to happen. If he was going to win because he was a better fighter than Lomachenko, then that was going to happen. But the round 12 that Lopez had, Teofimo, that was the deciding factor in that fight. Because from 6 on, Lomachenko made the decision, my shoulders hurt or whatever, I don't want to play the whole injury game. Lomachenko made a decision. I'm going to fight my ass off, and this guy's going to stand right in front of me, so it's all good. If you move over to the Pedro Campa fight, this is an action fighter. Like I said before earlier in the video, poor man's version of Juan Manuel Marquez, but in my opinion, more technical, but less power. This is the type of fighter that's tailor-made for Teofimo Lopez. Here's what Teofimo Lopez was going to have to do. He's got to have lead hand action. When he's gotten in trouble before against the upper echelon of talent, and I'm not going to call George Kambosos upper echelon. Shout out to him. He beat McBay, Lee Selby. He got carved up by Devin Haney. He was in there with George Kambosos, or excuse me, Teofimo, and he beat him, whatever. I don't think Kambosos is rated that fighter. What's going on? Oh, my goodness. Hold up. Coach Joe, what's the deal? How you living? I got started a little early because I didn't want to, cut into people's time. But right now, we're just having a conversation about who Teofimo Lopez is now, post the loss of Kambosos, his skills and attributes at 140 pounds, and how he looks against Pedro Campa moving forward. And so what I was leaving off with is that, excuse me, Teofimo Lopez has all the skills and ability. He can box, he can fight, he has good power. I think his power will carry to 140. Where he gets into trouble is he falls in love with his power and he abandons the lead hand. This is something that really aided him tremendously when he fought Vasily Lomachenko. Him and his pops, or whoever his training team is or was, really said, we have to have a lead hand against Lomachenko or we'll lose. They did that. They executed at a high level. You go to the George Kambosos fight, the only thing they want to do was seek and destroy, leap in, and not defend on the offside, and get countered all night long. George Kambosos' job that evening was fairly easy. All I need to do is wait for him to commit, sit my butt down, left, right hand, rinse and repeat. Then, if Teofimo Lopez gets caught on the outside, or in the middle distance, overhand right catch him. It was landing all night, dropped him in the second round, I believe it was, and did his thing for the entirety of the fight. Teofimo Lopez showed signs of life back in 9th round. I believe he drops Kambosos, but it wasn't enough. Kambosos gets up, acknowledges his mistake, overcommitted. He got hungry. He got kind of too ambitious, and then, cleans up his mistakes and continues to counter Teofimo for the rest of the evening, wins the fight. It was rated a split decision. I did not see that fight a split decision between Kambosos and Teofimo. I think Teofimo had moments, but George Kambosos really kind of did what he wanted in that fight. Shout out to him. He got carved up by Devin Haney, so it doesn't matter. I just wanted to kind of cover that base before we moved over into how I see the Pedro Campa fight working out. Pedro Campa, he's going to have to find a jab this evening, make Teofimo work to get in, because if he thinks that his traditional normal style is going to be effective, I think he's going to stop early. I do think that Teofimo Lopez power carries from 35 to 40. And if he boxes intelligently, he has a power, skill set, and ability to stop a guy like Campa early inside of 5 rounds. I think it's interesting that this is a 10-round bout for some vacant belts. Obviously, it's the first round or the first try at 140 pounds for Teofimo. It's hard to say that guys want to be in my position and they want to see what I'm about, and then you're doing 10 rounders against guys that no one really knows unless you're really deep into the sport of boxing. And it's for belts that nobody's checking for. Like, we want to go at Tank Davis for taking Mario Barrios' belt, a regular belt, and oh, it's a regular belt, 140, blah, blah, blah. But he has a championship belt. Like, he has a real belt. I think that Teofimo's fighting for NABA, NABIF, or whatever the case may be, his belt. I'm not sure, but maybe I'm looking at this from the wrong perspective. Perhaps it's a situation where he needs to get back on the saddle. He needs to get back on the horse. He goes out there and beats a guy that nobody knows or is checking for, and he does it in highlight reel fashion. He already has a machine behind him. Shout out to him and ESPN. They pick and choose who they're going to promote at a high level. Terrence Crawford wasn't one of those guys. I'm glad he's a free agent now, and he's pursuing the fight with Errol Spence Jr. But perhaps Teofimo Lopez can be a guy that ESPN decides to commit to and really start jamming down the casuals' throats as a name-known guy if he can be victorious this evening. The only issue with Teofimo Lopez is I feel like at times he's unsavory, he talks way too much, and he doesn't live in this reality. To compound that issue is his dad is also a crazy person. I don't mean crazy literally, but he also says a lot of outlandish shit that no one's really checking for. But from a fighting perspective, and depending on how this fight goes, I may hop on here and do another live. But depending on how hold up. Brenda, what's the deal? Brenda McDonald, now you in the building. I want to give you this real quick. You do gotta love it. It is what it is, and it's all and it's 100% all love. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. All right, so we on deck. Brenda, answer me this question if you can. What I was saying about Teofimo Lopez was this. He's fighting at 140 tonight. First fight at 140. He's fighting Pedro Campa. What does this fight mean if he wins, and if he wins in spectacular fashion? For me, I don't know if I'll be super impressed. That's not taking anything away from him. But I feel like the hype that's been driven behind him begets something more than a 10-rounder against a guy that a lot of people don't know, who also doesn't have a lot of power. So that's just kind of where I'm at with that. So I'm interested in your perspective on that one. I'm definitely interested in that because they say he's bigger and he's the action style, but he's not stopping a lot of guys. And I think to beat a guy like Teofimo, who does have a decent skill set, you have to make him respect you. And if you can't do that, then he just gets to have his way. When I think about the best guys at 140 pounds, though, you think about Jack Catterall, Josh Taylor, Pedraza, Ramirez, and really, I think about Regis Prograis, who just, for some strange reason, can't get fights. And I don't know if it's a management company thing, but all the dudes that I just said, including Teofimo Lopez, Can you imagine a scenario where Teofimo Lopez fights somebody like um, a Regis Prograis? His ass will get bodied. Respectfully, and excuse my language, he will absolutely get bodied. Yeah, so Teofimo came in at 138.4. Pedro Campa came in at 139.4, I believe. But RGJ3 Boxing, my question to you is this. Him coming in underweight at 140, does that mean he's a 40-pounder? Or does that mean he's stretching himself at 135? Because that's the thing that happens. If you think about from an MMA perspective, BJ Penn used to fight at welterweight 170, which is in mixed martial arts. But really, he was a 55-pounder, but would do shit like drink a bunch of water and try to overhydrate to look big on the scales. Is Teofimo in shape? Or is he stretching himself to that weight class at 140 pounds? If he says he can't make 35 anymore because he's grown out of his body, then I believe him. But to come in underweight means one of two things. You're really not a 40-pounder, or you're in ridiculous fighting shape, which Max Kellerman and Tim Bradley suggested. But for me, it's hard to make that determination if you can't see an individual operate in real time. I don't know if you're in fighting shape until you're operating within that space, if that makes sense to you. All right, so from Brendan McDonald, don't know Campa, but highlights look pretty tough. I have doubts about Lopez anyway. If Lopez looks great, he's back. If he loses, back of the line. I agree with that, and I'm a little bit nervous from the perspective of, it's almost easier to fight and beat a guy like Lomachenko because we get to celebrate you. Oh, you beat Loma, blah blah blah. If you go out there and if you struggle like the Nakatani fight for Lopez, or this fight against Pedro Campa, the critique is there. But you think about this thing, like there was a interview that Hasim Rahman did where he talked about fighters are like 15, 16, 20 and 0 demanding world title fights. Back in the day, you was 29, 32, 33 and 0 before you demanded a world title fight. I think one of the things that gets in the way of a guy like a Teofimo Lopez is the fact that you talk so much shit, and your dad, he might be worse than you. You lose, you look bad, and then you want to get right back in the saddle. Then you go to 140 pounds and say, well, these guys aren't really shit. I'm really that guy. You don't have a belt. You lost at 135 to Kambosos. You ran away from Devin Haney. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Excuse my language. You ran from Devin Haney. Devin Haney beat Kambosos. Tank is looming around. We don't believe you. So, in my opinion, I don't think that Teofimo Lopez has a choice. He has to come out here and win within 4 rounds and win in brutal fashion, straight like that. He's got to win in brutal fashion. I'm not really checking for Teofimo Lopez. The lead hand has got to be on deck. That's the key to everything. If he sets up his power, because he's a diverse offense, but he wants to get guys out of there so badly, that's what got him in trouble against Kambosos. He's leaping in. He's not setting anything up. Overhand shots, uppercuts, and sweeping shots, right? That's what he's trying to do. And if he uses his lead hand, which he did against Lomachenko, then he has an opportunity for success against anybody. Not say he'll beat everybody, but that's what makes him a better fighter. And so from Brenda, yeah, he'll be dismissed if he doesn't look great. That's 100% correct. I agree with you. And the only reason why is not because he's a bad fighter. It's too much shit came before this moment in time. That's why he'll get dismissed. Too much came before this moment in time. He was knocking out dudes with a record of 4-12 on ESPN and doing backflips, and they love that. Shout out to Joe Tessitore. Shout out to ESPN. Shout out to Top Rank. Shout out to Bob Arum. But that's why we're in this position right now. RG. That means he's ready to fight. He's in shape. He wants to knock out not Ocampo. Shout out to Ocampo. He's a 47-pounder, 5-fight win streak, 4 stoppages. But Pedro Campa is a 40-pounder with a 3-fight win streak right now. Not a lot of power, but I get your overall point. If he comes in shape, that's a plus. The reason why I don't hype that is you're a professional prize fighter. That's a bare minimum. You get knocked out in the first round, but you got an 18 pack. I'm proud of you. You did your thing. But with Teofimo, I think it has to be a little bit more than that. I think that he has to come in, and I agree with Brendan McDonald 100%. He has to come in and impress. He has to do what he wants to do and knock this dude out and embarrass him at 140 pounds and start saying names like Catterall, Taylor, Regis Prograis. Now, I don't want to, if Teofimo, listen to me. Hold up. Let me get close to the camera. And I don't have a good mic on my camera, but listen. If Teofimo Lopez wins in the first round and he calls out Regis Prograis, he's going to get stopped viciously or he's going to get maimed. Regis Prograis is a guy, he's a legitimate boogeyman. When they talk about, oh, so-and-so's a boogeyman in a division, Regis Prograis is lumping people up and stopping people viciously. He admitted himself recently, especially after he stopped Anthony McKenna, I can punch and fight. Now I'm getting my boxing bag. My timing's getting right. I'm really here to hurt people. This is the reason why people don't fight Regis Prograis. Shout out to Brendan McDonald. His father got to go, which probably is going to be tough for him, but everyone sees and says the same. And I agree. Brenda, I don't know if you put it at this level, but there's a higher level of success here, but I felt the same way early on with Sean and Kenny Porter. And then you saw how it culminated with the Terrence Crawford fight. And, you know, if Terrence Crawford was going to stop Sean Porter, I'm good with that. I'm fine with that. But you don't get to have a big-ass ego when I'm in the ring getting punched. And so that's why I agree with you wholeheartedly, because this dynamic where the dad kind of is superseding what's happening, even though I'm training, I'm cutting weight, I'm sacrificing, and then ultimately the one getting beat on, I don't know if that's best case scenario, if you know what I'm saying. RGJ3 Boxing, let me ask you this question. How do you see it going this evening for Teofimo? If you could offer a prediction, like you offer yours, I'll give you mine, because I'm pretty settled where I think this fight's going to end up. And while you get that going, what I would say is this. Excuse me. If Teofimo establishes his lead hand early, he'll win the fight fairly easy, get a stoppage inside of 4 rounds. That's what I think. If he tries to leap in and be crazy and like rip uppercuts and hooks off the far side, I think he's going to have trouble against an action-style fighter with a good chin and good volume and activity. But if he boxes early, sets up his offense, Teofimo will win pretty easy, in my opinion. That's fact. So George Camboso Sr., excuse me. Yeah, so that was a weird ass corner. And Brenda, I know you know this. Even if you go over to MMA, if I'm getting my ass whooped and you're like, hey, you got to stop losing, you're getting your ass, you got to do something different, how does that help me? So in the Cambosos fight for Teofimo Lopez, you got to go out there, you got to do something. You got to knock him out. Okay, Dad, how do I set up my right hand? Where's my outside foot leverage? What is the feint going to do? Should I go to the body with the lead hand and then go upstairs? How do I get him off balance? How do I do these types of things? I'm just screaming at my child to just do something different and then knock him out, and then I'm a good corner man. That's a great observation. I see that shit so much in MMA, but that's exactly what happened in that corner. And I think that it's troublesome for some fighters like a Teofimo or a Sean Porter to say, hey, Dad, I love you. Give me some dap, you know, and we'll go from there. But get other people involved. Get guys who don't have the emotional attachment in your corner to say, all right, cool. This is how we're going to win this fight. We're 4 rounds in. This is what I've observed. This is the skills that I know you have. This is how you apply it in real time. This is how we get a W. I believe Teal wins. If he works everything off the jab, he will need to stay defensive minded. See, and that's a good assessment. I think that he can take more risk against a guy like Pedro Campo because even though Campa, excuse me, is busy, he doesn't have a lot of power. Teofimo is a durable fighter that showed in the Cambosos fight, but he does need to be methodical in his approach, utilize the lead hand, use some variety in the lead hand, and set up his power shots. He's a dynamic offensive fighter. I think that he wants to get the highlight a little bit too much. It gets him in trouble. This is a good fight for him to show that he can box, which he's done before. Utilize the lead hand, and then, use his power off the right-hand side and get it done. Bud didn't face the same Porter that Errol had in the ring. Errol faced a bit, and that's facts. That's true. I won't argue that. I'm about to end this live because you said that, because I know cats are going to come for me, but it's true. What I would say is this, though. Bud Crawford faced a good Sean Porter. There's a sequence in that fight where Sean Porter gives Bud Crawford like a forearm to the neck, right? Inside fighting, dirty fighting, and he stops. And then he hugs Bud Crawford, just gives him a couple pats on the back, like, my bad, G, my bad, I didn't mean to get crazy. I commend Bud Crawford because Bud Crawford said, yeah, we cool, but I'm still going to knock your ass out if I get the chance. And he did. But I still feel like those two combatants fought differently because if you guys don't know, Bud Crawford and Sean Porter have a pretty solid relationship. I think they fought differently because of that relationship. But I would say, all that bullshit aside that I just said, the best version of Sean Porter was the one that was hunting for Errol Spence Jr., fought his ass off, and ultimately it just wasn't enough. Got dropped in the 11th. You look at the CompuBot stats, despite Sean Porter's activity, the accuracy and the consistency of Errol Spence won out in that fight. I think that, hold up. Which one are you talking about for a great sparring match? The Spence Crawford or the Spence Porter? But anyway, yeah, I think in both fights, Sean Porter came to win. The better man won those fights. That's what I would say. No matter who you were checking for, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford, Sean Porter, the better man won that evening. And it's kind of one of the fucking upsetting things about a guy like a Sean Porter, who's really a great fighter of our time, fought everybody, not a punk. Broner, Thurman, Danny Garcia, he fought everybody. And, against some of the best of the best of the best, he came up short. No issue. Errol had the 113 body work. Porter has 44. But, you're not surprised by that. You go to the punch stats, you're not surprised by that. That's what Errol does. I think one of the things that caught Sean Porter off guard, despite his activity, the overall activity of Errol Spence, which might sound silly, but Errol Spence is a very busy fighter. He has high output. But if you're a Sean Porter, you're used to really outworking guys and figuring out a way to get advantages there. Like, for example, if you look at the punch stats for Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, I really feel like Danny Garcia won the fight. He had the cleaner work. But the punch stats show that Sean Porter was busier. He did more work, so to speak. And he was just really able to win by his effort. But Danny Garcia, in my opinion, had cleaner work. Shout out to Brenda. One big problem with some fighters is they buy their own hype. Facts. Shut up, head down, forget dancing and the BS, and work. Celebrate when you've beaten them all. Spit. I knew you're going to say something crazy about Spence. You're going to hit me with a great-ass fucking, a great-ass comment and then just dog Spence. All right, guys, so listen up. Shout out Brenda McDonald. If you don't know, she's been very consistent in my chats, in my comment section, in my shorts, lives, edited videos. She is very convinced that Errol Spence is leaving whenever that fight happens, November, December, in a body bag, and he'll get put there by TBC, Terrence Bud Crawford. Shout out to Brenda McDonald. We have to have more conversations. We have to have a live dedicated. And Brendan, you got to get in the live early. It's gonna be me and you, and we just chop it up about this fight. But going back to your previous comment, because I think it's a good one. This is the age that we're in now. Guys don't just simply fight. And Brendan, you be going at Errol Spence, but you got to look at something that he did that was very, very good. He was a welterweight, full time, fought, called out guys. Oh, Keith Thurman, you don't want to fight? Fought Leonard Bundu, Phil Greco, Chris Algieri. Finally got the fight for what's his damn name? Sheffield, Kell Brook. He just fought guys, got belts, fought guys, got belts, fought guys, got belts. He talked some shit along the way, but it was in context of the opponents that he wanted to fight. And so that's what I have an appreciation for, because ultimately, to your point, we could talk about a guy like a Ryan Garcia, right? Oh, Tank Davis, I'll knock you out, I'll make it look easy. And then you fight a no-name guy that nobody's checking for. A Mickey or Mackie or whatever this guy, Maxie, whatever the fuck. I don't even know his name. No, and I feel you on that. I think I disagree with you from that perspective, but yeah, one thing that I say consistently is that if you didn't buy Bud Crawford, Amir Khan for pay-per-view, then don't talk to me about being a Bud fan. Because I love the sport. I'm in the sport. I've been in the sport. I've gotten my ass kicked. I've been knocked out. I've been in Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, MMA. I've been in this sport legitimately, whether I've studied it, applied it to myself, or whatever the case may be in real time. I've been in this for a long time. So when you see a fighter like a Terrence Bud Crawford, you recognize right away the tool, skills, and ability that he has, that he brings to the table. You see a fighter like Errol Spence Jr., who I consider to be unique in nature from his application of the sport because, one, he's a bruiser, he's a puncher, but he operates highly technical. I have some critiques about Errol Spence from a defensive perspective. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes from the hand exchange perspective like Bud Crawford does, but from his weight and commitment perspective, as far as how he applies himself, he puts himself in precarious situations where lesser fighters than a Bud Crawford can catch him slipping. So anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But I think about, to Brenda's point, guys today, you don't want to fight and win and build that way. You're not interested in that. You want to beat guys that no one gives a shit about, say a bunch of crazy stuff, and then get big paydays or get title shots. And the landscape of boxing has changed from that perspective. There's no getting around that. There's no arguing that. But what's our time right now? It's 6:20 right now. We got the card coming up. Brenda, are you watching Teofimo tonight or no? Or who else in here is watching the Teofimo? I mean, it's a free joint. He's fighting Pedro Campa. We want to see how he looks, but I want to know if Brenda's checking that out tonight. I'm going to shoot downstairs. I'm going to check that fight out. Oh, okay, shout-outs. You're going to check it out. Cool. If I don't get too sippied up, I'll probably hop on here and do another live so we can kind of talk about it. But I'll leave you with this. There are names in the 140-pound division right now that I don't think Teofimo can beat. Straight like that. I think that he hasn't shown me enough for these guys at the top of the division. And primarily, I really mean Regis Prograis. I feel like he can beat Josh Taylor, but Josh Taylor is a dynamic fighter with a lot of skills and abilities. He just lacks power. I think about Regis Prograis, Josh Taylor. I'm not going to put Jack Catterall in there, but there's a lot of names at 140 that I'm thinking about. If Teofimo comes out and looks victorious and he does his thing, who and what can he beat? That's kind of where I'm at, but I want to see how he looks tonight, going up against stiff competition, a guy with a lot of experience. They say he has a Mexican style. I agree with that from that perspective of volume and toughness, but I think he's a little more technical than that. Poor man's Manuel Marquez, less power, but we got to see how it plays out. This is your boy JG. This is a Punch Report. Brenda, if I get back on here, you better hop on here, and then we got to set something up for our argument for the Spence Crawford. But guys, if you're in here right now, please take the opportunity, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for further notifications. We do lives, we do edited videos and breakdowns. My breakdowns are pretty good. And check out the shorts. Thought-provoking questions about where and what scenarios fighters can have success in, or where they might be deficient. But we got to talk about it. It's your boy JG. We out.